Hi, I'm Josh, and this is Cars and Joshy. So if we look at how this condenser from Vintage Air is supposed to mount up here, it's got an upper brace, a middle section, and a lower brace. And what's supposed to happen is the lower brace goes right inside the core support like this. You mark holes in here to put some bolts up through the bottom. You drill a hole, put a bolt up through the bottom, and it holds this in place. Bolt this bracket onto here at the top and at the bottom, and then your factory radiator. Got some bolts for the factory radiator or core support that go into the two end holes, and then you drill two more holes for these spots right here, and then put like a sheet metal screw in there. But the problem with it is this little section that holds the dryer for the system. If I put this up in here like it's supposed to go, then the dryer hangs down and I can't put my front mount intercooler in there. And even if I back it off a little bit, then it's too far out for these. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do to fix that problem is I'm just going to take piece of steel that I have, some sheet metal that I have, and trace this piece out on it, and then just make it a flat piece instead of this. And then that way I can take this, I can cut it, just cut this little tension clamp, and I'll figure out somewhere to mount it inside here. I'm thinking right up against this right here. See if I can fit my dryer in there like that, and then that way I can just run my hoses from the dryer straight down to the condenser and be able to use some of these pieces from the Vintage Air kit. Got a little template drawn up on here. Go ahead and start cutting it out. Alright, there's my piece. I think it'll hold. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take all these straps back off of here and end up mounting it with the bracket that I made. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this condenser back off. I'm gonna get the bracket painted up, put together on the condenser, and then I'll put the lower bracket in here, mark the holes to drill it, and we'll go from there. Oh yeah, that's almost perfect. Looks like it came with the kit. Doesn't look like a custom hack job at all. Let me go ahead and mount that in there and mark it for these holes here. I think that looks pretty good sitting in there. I just need to mark right here so that I can drill a little hole so the bolt can go up through. Bolt this down, and then I still have, I think I'm gonna have to notch this just like I did the other side. We'll bring it down and notch that a little bit, because let me get this up here. There's not quite enough room for my 90 right there. Not quite. But if I notch it, it should be perfect. So what I'm gonna work on is, actually once I mark those holes, get those holes drilled, I'm gonna work on getting some type of flat plate welded on here so that the heat exchanger can sit on it. So up underneath there, try and get some type of flat bar welded there, and I'll maybe use angle iron. So I'll weld to this, I'll bring it out, I'll have angle iron or something on there to where I can bolt the intercooler to it, and it should sit in there nicely. Then I have to work on figuring out where I'm gonna put the dryer and the heat exchanger for the killer chiller, and traced it for up underneath. Like I had the heat exchanger up there, and I just took this and traced the bottom of it, come up with this. So what I'm gonna do is I've got some more old bed frame out in my shed. I'm gonna go grab some. I'm gonna cut a piece to go all the way the length of this, and I'm gonna weld it onto here. So like tack weld it on there, like all the way, going all the way across on all of these. And then right here in between where I have gaps, I'm just gonna get another piece of metal and weld it kind of for like reinforcement there. So that's how I plan on doing that. That way, you know, so it's not just riding on this. It's got some flat surface for it to set on. And then not only that, when we come to the mounting points, I'll just drill out a hole in here, run a bolt, nut and a bolt through it, and be able to mount it up just like that. Okay, here's what I came up with. It's just a piece of channel iron, and I did notch out this corner for the fittings and the hoses to be able to go through. Marked out where this needed to be, just held it up there, tacked it in place, and then I took some just scrap pieces to kind of put in here to fill these gaps. So that should hold just fine. I've got the holes drilled out to mount the heat exchanger, and yeah, I'll be back in a minute. I have to go to work now, but I'll be back in a minute to put the condenser in there and then throw the heat exchanger up here. I mean, it's pretty solid there. This should hold the heat exchanger just fine. The hood latch piece, the bracket for the hood latch, I'm gonna get that and modify it probably with the same channel iron to hold the two mounting points on the top of the heat exchanger, and mount it to this so it'll be all bolted in completely there. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so I got this area touched up. I used some packing paper, masking tape, taped off around there so I wouldn't get overspray everywhere. Went ahead and sprayed that black, and then got the condenser put in. So it's just got some 1/4" bolts that come up through the bottom, and on the top up here I need to get the factory bolts. I'm supposed to reuse the factory bolts here in the corners, so I gotta find those to get those in there. But I think I'm at a point where I can throw the heat exchanger up there and see how that's gonna sit. So let me go ahead and get that. Alright, so I got this hose hooked back up. I didn't have to modify it any. I didn't have to run a new one. The length was just right on it. So got it hooked into the intercooler. Got the intercooler mounted to the bracket that I made. There's a little 1/2" little black chrome spacer up in there, right there on both sides there, and seems to be pretty good. I thought maybe I might have found another location that I could put the killer chiller and have it get more airflow to it to help it function better. I don't know if this is going to work or not. I put the grill up there for a minute, and if that's where I'm going to have it, I'm going to have to notch this section right here out so that it'll sit up flush against there, which isn't a big deal. I think I can probably do that. Alright y'all, I've been digging through all of my totes of parts, all these bins with yellow lids, all the parts that need to go back on the El Camino. I've been looking for this part and I couldn't find it, and you know, I wanted to continue on with my build, so I found somebody locally that had a couple parts El Caminos, and I was able to get the part. And so I went over and I've been trying to figure out how it gets mounted. So I know how it would mount onto the core support. It's pretty easy there. The part that I couldn't figure out is how does it get onto the header panel. And if you look at mine, I don't have any provisions or anything that this would even mount to. I mean, the only holes that I have up here are for the little push pins for the grill to come through. So there's no brackets or anything that this would mount to. So I've been asking around. I went onto a Facebook El Camino group and asked about it, and somebody on there was finally able to tell me that only the Choo-Choo and the Monte Carlo front ends on the El Caminos have this bracket because it's a bigger front bumper and stuff, a bigger header panel and all that. So only those styles have that bracket. And so I was thinking, well, all right, to kind of customize it to make a mount for the heat exchanger, I'd have to cut a lot of the center area out so that I can run my hoses and stuff to the killer chiller. And it got to the point where I'm just like, well, I don't know how I'm going to mount the killer chiller anyways. And so what I ended up doing was just scrapping that idea of using that bracket there. And I just built my own bracket. And, you know, being a novice fabricator, you know, one of my favorite things to use is cut up bed frame, a little angle iron bed frame. So once again, the bed frame came to the rescue. I'm able to nestle this killer chiller right down in here. I mean, it fits like a glove. And coming off of the core support down to here, mount the heat exchanger straight to this bracket, slide the killer chiller in here, and I mean, this thing is tight. It's not it's on there great. It's snug. It's not going anywhere. And I think that's how I'm going to do it, because now I can run, this is for the refrigerant line for the AC unit. I can run that here, run it straight out to the compressor over there. And then these two on the back, this is the in for the coolant, this is the out for the coolant. And yeah, this is for the pressure side of the AC system, and this is for the suction side. So I've got enough room in here where I can have my tees in here as well if I want, because I have to tee off and go to the condenser and go to the evaporator and the killer chiller. So I think this will be a great place for the tees, and then I can run all of my lines right out here. I mean, I've got all this space to run the lines, so I think that's going to work out perfect. Now I just got to make sure when I mount this, clears all the bumper and everything. I really hope it does, because I put a lot of work into this. I don't have my bumper right now. I need to get that, make sure it fits. But the other thing that I know that I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to trim the backside of my clip here. Right in here, all I need to do is just notch this and it'll fit. And then I'll be good. I'll have all of this mounted up here. I can throw the front, the header panel back on here, and yeah, should be good to run all the lines. All right, y'all, just got back from LS Fest, Texas, and motivated me to come into the garage and work a little bit more on the El Camino. So what I ended up doing, I put factory bolts back in here. I had to drill a hole and put a sheet metal screw in here, and got the condenser mounted all the way. Let me see if I can get a look at where it's at. Yep, sheet metal screw right there, and there's one on the other side, and then those are the factory bolts on the end there. So got the condenser all mounted in, and ended up finishing up the paint on that bracket for the killer chiller, and mounted the killer chiller back there. Yeah, I'll take this front clip off in a minute, but show you what I took off of it. This piece right here was on there like this, and so it was buttoned up and preventing me from putting the header panel on. So I just cut that section off, and lines right up now. Alright, pretty plain to see where I cut it. You can see it stops right there, and then I cut that whole section off. So when I set this up here, you can see I wanted to clear it all the way from this bracket all the way up, and that's pretty much what it does. So from right there, I cut that whole section out, going all the way down. Fits like a glove now. And then I also put my little bumper mounts on, and put a bolt in there to kind of hold it on there to see how far it is from the intercooler, which I think it's far enough away. I don't have my bumper with me. I got to get it from my painter, but I'll send him a message and try and get my bumper over here and throw it on there to see how it all fits. But at least now I got it to where the header panel will fit. Everything's all buttoned in there, looking good. Now just got to drop the radiator back in here and hook up the hoses and start running the lines to the AC, and I'll do that in the next video. So that's going to do it for this one. Make sure y'all like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell for new videos. Thanks for watching Cars and Joshy. Josh out.